we just had a massive front come through, and yesterday was a full moon. So yeah, not great fishing conditions. I typically don't like fishing after a front, especially after a full moon. I'm gonna try a chatterbait out right now. I think the water's a little bit dingy, and with that front, you know, I don't know how long I'm gonna stand here, but I'll try it. Bit of wind today, a little chop on the water. I'm thinking either crankbait or chatterbait, jig, some jig maybe even swim bait, but we got to see where they're at first. One on the chatterbait. Thanks, bud. So today's just gonna be about finding the fish. With these conditions, this gets kind of hard. We got some that are moving, migrating off of their, you know, spawn points, and they're going deep or they're going in other places. And then you got fish that are probably turned off because of the front, fish that are turned off because of the full moon. Now there's arguments for back and forth, right? That you could have a good time with a full moon. I've never had a good time on a full moon. A couple days before and after are pretty good, but never during. You know, I don't really know where they're gonna be. A little flashy, I think, but like, I really don't want to put a spinnerbait on. It's not really my confidence, and I like a chatterbait in place of a spinnerbait. But I like throwing my chatterbaits, like I said, on a jig rod. It's usually a medium heavy, fast. I suppose you can put any reel you want on it. Not even a sniff, huh? Not even a sniff. Little tiny guy. Thanks, bud. Oh, I watched him eat. I watched him come up for that. Oh. Thanks, bud. That was cool. That's why you always got to finish your casts. Even if you think it's a bad cast, always finish your casts. You never know where that fish is going to bite. I feel like a jerkbait might actually work okay. jerkbait bite. Thanks, bud. So this jerkbait, I'm thinking it might work. Summer jerkbaits are fun. You know, I've caught a lot of fish on jerkbait. It's still not a confidence bait for me, really. I have confidence in it, but it's not my first choice to throw. Thanks, bud. So jerkbait's a good way to get a reaction bite. The good thing, it also gives them a little bit of time to look at it, which I think they kind of want. They want a little bit of, they want to look at it a little bit. So right now I've got a Vision 110 Junior. I don't remember the name of the color. Needs a retie. So yeah, I'm just throwing a Vision 110 Junior right now. And this is a 610 medium fast. It's probably my favorite jerkbait rod. This is a Shimano Expride. I've got this paired up to my Metanium DC, which is perfect for this kind of setup because jerkbaits don't really weigh a whole lot. And with the help of this reel, I'll be able to kind of get it out there further than a normal reel. Right now we're in about 8 to 10 feet of water, so it drops off here pretty quickly. The bank starts about 3 feet, and then it just drops down into about this 8-foot bottom right here. And so this thing dives down to about 1 to 3 feet. And that's where I've been seeing a lot of the action. It has been right around the top of the water. I suppose you could make the argument of a top water being pretty good right now, and you would not be wrong, but I've caught a lot of them on top water recently. So I'm hoping to maybe get something a little different. Jerkbait bite is fun. It's sometimes violent, and sometimes you don't even know they're there. You're just going for a pump and you just feel that weight on the line. Sometimes you feel it, sometimes they, depending on the kind of fish. I know drum do it a lot, but depending on the fish, they will absolutely smoke it. And sometimes you can feel that. But what you want to do is you want to jerk it slack line. You want to jerk in slack line. You don't want to jerk on taut line, because what you want that bait to do is do the cuts, right? And if you're on taut line and you're doing that, it's not gonna cut, it's gonna swim through the water and give it a little bit of an unnatural wobble to it. Now you can fish these things just cranking them in like a crankbait. People have caught fish on them like that. I've seen it. Not something that I would recommend at this point. I would say if you want something that wobbles like a crankbait and you're throwing a jerkbait, just why not throw a crankbait? So I'm kind of jerking this. What I believe I'm doing is kind of down this slope a little bit, and I think the bass are up, not super shallow, but they are nose, I would say nose towards the shallow right now. There's some sparse grass down here too. But yeah, so you want to jerk on slack line, roll up until you have all the slack, and just kind of give it a jerk. You're doing it on slack line. It's going to feel a little weird because you're not used to doing that, but you'll feel the bait catch usually right at the end of your twitch. And so, you know, the fish are going to tell you what cadence to use or what they like, if they like a real fast jerks, or if they want long pauses. Typically in the summer I don't pause as long, but my cadence is usually 1 2 1 1 2 3 1. I usually just put a 1 pump in there to separate out the 2s and the 3s. You can cover a lot of water with the jerkbait. Thanks, bud. So I'm fishing this, it's like an outlet, just rainwater. figure it's probably bringing in food for the bait fish. Thank you. I didn't want to do that. I hate those little guys. Thanks, bud. So to tie a Texas rig, you need two things. You're gonna need a weight, and you're gonna need a hook. Right here I have a 3/0 Gamakatsu EWG. That stands for extra wide gap. That wide gap comes through here. So what you do, take your weight, and you thread it through. And then, take your hook, and I like, since the hook is faced up, I like to go down, thread the hook with the tag end going down. And then I use the uni knot for almost all my applications. And so basically all you do is once you get it through, you then loop it over your two fingers. And then you grab that loop. I usually grab it with the middle finger, and then you just go over both of those loops. I go 7 times, 8 to 7 times. Then you just pull, wet it down, cinch it tight. And there is the Texas rig set up. Now, what I'm using for my Texas rig is just a cutter worm, speed worm. Zoom Make speed worms, cutout worm by Strike King works pretty well. Basically anything that has a tail to it is what I'm using. So to rig a Texas rig, all you got to do is go on the top of the bait, go about a 1/4 inch down, pop it out, go ahead and feed it up through, and once you get to this turn the bait 90 degrees. Push on up. There you go. Now I typically like to go a little past the eye, so I can tag that. I can hide that tag end. And then you're just gonna want to see where it goes in, right around there. Maybe go through the top, and then just text pose the top of it. So then it's completely weedless. So now with the Texas rig, it's kind of like a jig in the same sense that like you're gonna let it hit the bottom, and then you're just kind of crawling over rocks, giving it some hops here and there to get over some rocks, or just give it a little extra play. But you know, it's not something I think that you should be going like this in the water with. It's more something you just kind of just crawl the bottom. Sort of like a jig. Thanks, bud. So just sort of like a jig, you're just kind of crawling it along the bottom. So I'm just going to kind of shallow right now with it. And I have a 1/4 ounce weight, letting it hit the bottom. And then really the movement that I'm giving this, I'm not reeling in the bait with my reel, I'm moving it with my rod tip. And so I'm doing that because I can feel the bottom. I can see like, oh, there's some laydowns, there's some rock down there. And then when it kind of smooths off, then I know I've hit the bottom of the riverbed. But the bass that are biting, kind of like, they're up a little shallow. They're not up super tight to the cover. but they're waiting for that bait to come down, fall down into them. You see some grass here, sparse grass here and there. Doesn't look like a whole lot, but I like it. It is truly weedless. You know, Texas rigged correctly is weedless. Now you are going to catch some of that slime snot grass. There really isn't any getting around that snot grass though, unless you use a moving bait and you're not touching the bottom. And so since I'm using an unpegged Texas rig, what's happening is the weight will go to the bottom, and then the bait is just going to chase the weight. And that's pretty much what that unpegged Texas rig will do. Some people peg them always, some people don't. I peg it when I'm flipping into like heavy cover. Obviously I'm going to peg. I think it really depends on what the bass want to, and then kind of what bait you're fishing. And since I'm fishing a worm here, I feel better with it being unpegged. If I was doing like a craw, I'd maybe want to do more of a peg so that I can get that swimming action of a craw. Whereas with a worm, most of the action is going to come from the tail and just the act of it swimming. So I don't really need to give it so much more action like I would like a beaver style or, you know, a craw style. Nice. Thanks, bud. That's what I thought. Like, I thought there'd be fish over here. Thanks, bud. Ooh. Thanks, bud. Oh, this bank. It's kind of a new bank for me. I haven't really come up this far, but picking up the slack with my reel. I'm just lifting slightly, moving the bait with the rod tip. So it's a slow bait. You're not going to be able to cover a whole lot of water with a Texas rig because you're basically pinpoint casting where you want that bait to be. And then once it's the bottom, just what I'm doing with my rod tip is I'm moving the bait with my rod tip. I'm not moving it with my reel when I'm fishing it. I'm moving it with the rod tip. There's a lot of grass over around here. Chatterbait would probably work pretty well too. But it'll cut through the weeds pretty well. That's what I like about the Texas rig is it's a weedless bait. So I can go through all this cover and not really worry about getting hung up. I might get some snot grass on me that I'll have to clean off. But for the most part, it's gonna stay relatively clean, which is nice. You don't want to really run a Texas rig if it's like a really muddy bottom. It's not gonna do much. It's gonna bury itself into the mud, into the silt. So I'm still up shallow and working my way down off of the bank. And with a sensitive enough rod, you can feel all the bottom. I can feel where rocks are, where the grass starts. And the bites that I've been getting is just me just barely rolling this over rocks, just barely touching them, and just kind of swimming it almost. I'm swimming it with the rod tip. Again, I'm using the reel to reel up my slack. Everything else is coming from my rod tip. Thanks, bud. Thanks, bud. Thanks, bud. A little bit bigger. Thanks, bud. So, not a bad day on the water. No, I came in today not really knowing what to throw, just because of the front that came through, the fact that it's a full moon, and it's hot today. The water was 80 to 82 degrees. Jerkbait really saved the day for me. That's really where I caught the majority of my fish, was on jerkbait. Slowed down with the Texas rig, and then tailed in there with some chatterbait just to see if there were any bigger ones hanging out. But yeah, I appreciate y'all watching, and tight lines, y'all.